It's doing that thing. Oh, here we are.
There we go.
Hi, everybody. Matt here from Matt Likes Comics. Tonight I have an awesome guest with me. He is known, relatively pretty well known in the Ontario area and throughout Canada. Yes, he's Canadian. He lives in Toronto, but he comes to Ottawa, where I've seen him before on many occasions. Ladies and gentlemen and gentle beings, may I please introduce Mr. Mike Rooth. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. We were talking briefly before the show, and it's good to find out that I am sharing the stage with a huge Conan fan.
Yeah, for sure. He's one of my guys. Absolutely. Yep. One of my favorites.
And of course, for those that are in the know, Mike does work for Conan. He's got some stuff with Titan that he's done that I've actually purchased, and it's really cool. Well, we'll let Mike tell the story. Mike, let's begin by asking, how did you get into comic books?
Well, it's one of those things where the road that you take as an artist is sometimes not a straight line. It's never a straight line. And I think ever since I was young, I always wanted to work in comics and, sword and sorcery and fantasy and fiction and things like that. I wanted to do record and album covers for metal bands and stuff like that. But comics was always a thing I wanted to do. When I got into college, I went to Sheridan College, where I met my wife here in Oakville. And when I was in school, it was right in the mid 90s, and comics were kind of in a weird place. It was before we had this massive tidal wave of pop culture come in and bury us all. So, it was a time when comics weren't, I wasn't collecting as much in those days. So maybe I wasn't in tune with what was going on as much. But my instructors basically said that I would never make it as a comic book artist, and I should just stop trying and I should do something else. And so because I was paying them the big bucks to go to college, I listened to them. And I had a career as an illustrator. I basically spent the first 15 years of my life as a professional, never saying no to a job, regardless of who it was for, what it paid, where it was being published. I didn't care. I wanted to create a body of work. I wanted to survive as an artist. I didn't have any choice. I had to pay the rent. I had to feed my cats, and art was the only tool I had. So really, when it came to getting into comics, it was something that was always kind of festering in my head that I wanted to do. But my career took me in all different kinds of places. I was doing editorial illustrations for magazines. I was doing instruction manuals. I was doing historical textbooks. I did a lot of books for Scholastic and for smaller Canadian publishers. Just a lot of Canadian history kind of stuff illustrated, but a lot of them were in graphic novel form. So I was doing a lot of historical comics for Rubicon here in Oakville. And they were just graphic novels about little periods of history. And I went through a period for about 6 years or so where I was cranking out a 44-page graphic novel every 6 weeks for Scholastic and for these other publishers. But
was that both pencils and inks, or were
pencils, inks, and colors? Yeah, I did all. Wow. And in those days, I'm kind of a Luddite, so in those days, I wasn't coloring with a fancy tablet like I do now, where I was coloring, with a mouse, and so it was a whole different experience. But I kind of cut my teeth on it, and I would go to visit Comic Cons where I'd see a lot of my friends and my peers, displaying their work, and I would think, man, I really wish I had just kind of gone after it a little bit. And everyone there was like, Mike, why aren't you here at the Comic Cons? Like, why aren't you showing your stuff? So I kind of hit a point. It was actually fate intervened around 2010. I lost my job, the entire art team was laid off from the company I was working for. I was the only full-time illustrator on staff. And they basically called me on a Wednesday and said, we're really sorry, but the whole art team's gone and Friday's your last day. So at that point, I was kind of 35 years old. I had no recourse to getting EI or anything because I was a contractor. So I basically said, you know what? Here I am. This is a crossroads. I always wanted to do comics, so I'm going to go after it. And so from that point on, I basically just started, reach out to comic creators that I liked and ask them, how they got started or what I should do or things I could try. I would offer to do pinups for people's comics to get a pinup in a book because I thought
Mhm.
the more pinups I get published, the more body of work I have in comics, and maybe I'll start to have people talking about, oh, I want to get a pinup or a cover from that guy. And I would always do my pinups in a way that they would work as a cover if they needed an alternate cover or something like that. And that happened a few times. So that's kind of how the wheels got started for me that way. It was just raw. Like I was just like, I like this book. I'm going to talk to the creator. I'm going to talk to the artist. I'm going to see if I can squeeze in there and get a pinup in there. So I showed up in the Strange Talent of Luther Strode and for Image Comics, a Justin Jordan book. I got my first Image pinup was in there. I did a bunch of stuff for indie books, too many to name at this point. And then, I started to get covers from retailers. Like a retailer would reach out and say, hey, I want to do a Captain Canuck cover. Can you do a Captain Canuck cover for me? Or I want to do shout out to Gotham Central, Carlos Camara, who hooked me up with some of my very first pro jobs. Like
Very cool.
I did stuff for Image and that kind of got the ball rolling. And then that's all I wanted to do. It was almost like a snake bite. I had the venom in me and I had to get that snake bite again to find the cure. But and that was 15 years ago, and I've just been cranking away ever since and trying to
Very
get
cool.
in wherever I can. Like people always say, Mike, how did you break into comics? And I'm like, I don't know, I'll let you know when I do. I'll let you know when it happens.
Well, I would say that you're starting to break in at the very least
I would
because,
think
as I
so.
said, I've got pieces you've done. I've managed to find a few things online.
I've showed up in
So,
the comic shops a few times. Yep.
yep. So before we get any further, let's say hi to everybody who's showing up tonight. Very first, we've got Andreas K. Munin. Good evening,
Hello.
K. Munin. There's a piece of art you will be familiar with from Mike that's coming out this week.
Yeah, it's out tomorrow.
We'll talk about it later. We've got Jeff in the house. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
Brian's here. Good to see you, Brian. Mark's Issues with Archie Comics is here. Good to see you. The absolutely awesome Robbie Josephs is here.
Guys.
And we've got Lewis here. Hi, Lewis, Second Floor Comics. And John Harrison's here. Comic Mike all the way from Laval. How are you? My wife doesn't remember that I'm online at the moment, I think. Rob Sage is here. And let's see who else we've got. It looks like everybody's just talking to each other at this point. So, we've got Brittany from Comic Showcase Shop. Good to see you.
Hello, Brittany.
Condition not considered. You need to contact me with your address. You were the big winner in the giveaway last week. I'm waiting for you. I don't know if you remembered that, and we've talked since. So send me your address so we can get things going. Lyle's here, all the way from Kamloops. Hi, Lyle.
Kamloops, wow.
Dope is here. Hi, Dope. Good to see you. Thomas O'Donnell. Great to see you come in.
You got a great crowd.
Yeah. Kenneth Bird is here. Hi, Kenneth. Mike from Chonko Comics. Chonko is a channel that you should be checking out there. Mike, he's very, very big into artists.
Right on. Chonko.
And Nate is here, who I'm going to be joining in about an hour's time. Good to see you, Nate. All right. And that's everybody. And apparently Condition has just sent me a message. All right. I'll check that out after. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. So, Mike, I'm going to make you big, and let's take a look at some of the stuff you've been doing. And
Sure.
If anybody has any questions in the crowd, just knock them out, and we'll ask Mike. All right.
Well, thanks, everyone, for joining. I guess I could show off a couple of things. The past year, I got to work on a lot of Conan projects, which was great. I got to do some covers for issue 20 of Conan. I believe that came out in January, I think, of maybe I'm wrong. No, maybe not January. It came out earlier in 2025 anyway. That was cool. and I think Matt has one handy there. After that, I kind of really got hung up on the idea of doing a Savage Sword of Conan
Yeah.
variant cover. So I ended up doing one of those with my local shop here in Oakville, Dungeon Comics. And
Very cool. And just give me a second here. I'm going to show, by the way, Mike was the one who was commissioned to do the Ottawa Comic Con exclusive cover this year.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out. I forgot to bring it over to have you sign it at that time. Perhaps the next time I see you. Yeah.
That cover was special. That was a project I initiated because I really wanted to do one. Not only did I want the cover to be on matte paper, the reason for that is I wanted it to be a blank so that I could do commissions on the back. And this became kind of a cool item at the Ottawa Comic Con, but also it was at the Winnipeg Comic Con, and it will be at the Montreal Comic Con in July. So very excited about that. I kind of had a little bit of control on this one. And the main reason I wanted to do a variant cover for this particular issue, and I was so happy that Ottawa Comic Con decided to partner with me on this, was because this issue features a 10-page story, or sorry, a 12-page story that I illustrated called Fang and Spear. I'll show you the title page here. And that was a thrill for me because I have mainly get known for doing covers. And when I got that random call one day from Heroic Signatures asking me if I'd be interested in doing a Jim Zub story, a 12-page Jim Zub story called Fang and Spear,
yeah,
it was a real thrill of a lifetime because, you know, I've been lucky enough to touch a lot of properties and different things in comics that I love. But Conan's always, in the very top 3 tier. And to not only get called to do a cover, but to get called to do an interior story was just awesome. And what was cool about Fang and Spear was it's the 100th anniversary of Robert E. Howard's very first published story, which was called
That is true.
Fang. And it uses the same characters, only Jim Zub decided to do kind of like a Serpent People spin on the story because that's what this whole arc is about this year, is a Serpent People and Set and all these, the woeful eye. And if you're not reading...
That's why he's going that way. Okay, that makes sense now. No,
if you're not reading Conan, you're missing out. It's Conan, I believe, has never been.
Well, I've read quite a few of the old novellas, but I mean, like once in a while, they're just close enough, but you're not quite sure. So that makes sense.
Yep.
We have a question here from K Munin.
Sure.
Besides Conan, which franchises do you enjoy drawing art for the most? Let's tell him what book's coming out tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow, if you go to your local comic shop, there'll be the Vampirella Winter Special. And I wish I had a copy of it here. Normally, they send me a free copy of my book, but I haven't got my copy yet. But it'll be in every comic store. It was the A cover. So the comic ordered that comic, they would get my cover. I believe it's also available in a Virgin cover as well. But it's a big snowman with moose antlers holding, carrying Vampirella in his arms.
That sounds cool.
That was a lot of fun. That was a really cool one. That was assigned back in September. Because back in September, we had a big change. Obviously, we had a looming postal strike, and we had the shipping between the U.S. and Canada changed. There was a lot of things that went on with tariffs. And so I basically kind of had a moment where I was like, you know what? I need to find ways to create income that don't rely heavily on the mail. So I started reaching out to just about every retailer I've worked with, every editor that I've worked with at different companies, and just tried to give them a poke and say, hey, I'm available for some work. Like I happened to get lucky with an email to Dynamite, and my editor there was like, well, I need a Vampirella cover like right away if you can do one for me. So I sat down and painted one up, and it was nice. And that's actually turned into a little bit more work. So, awesome. Great. Glad you're going to buy that book already.
And Dope here says he'd like to see you do a Hulk cover.
I would like to see me do a Hulk cover too. I've been a fan of the Hulk since I was a wee little kid, and he's not my favorite though. My favorite Marvel is Ben Grimm, The Thing. I'd love to do something with The Thing. That was my favorite comic as a kid, especially the Marvel 2-in-1, and then the Thing solo series where he was a pro wrestler and he did all kinds of cool stuff. Like he was on the Secret Wars planet for all that time and fighting all kinds of cool monsters and things.
That's true.
I love that comic book. He's my guy, the Ben Grimm. But the Hulk.
Yeah, I was just doing I just did a bunch of research. I'm doing a video on some of the Things books, so I was doing a bunch of research, and that Thing that Thing series you're talking about with the Secret Wars planet and stuff was stuff I was looking at.
It was so good. It was brilliant. John Byrne and Ron Wilson working on that stuff, and it was just like two of my heroes. And yeah, that was. I mean, for me as a kid, as a wrestling fan and a comic book fan, that book felt like it was written just for me every month. It was just a wild thing to be like 10 or 11 years old when that book was coming out. It was great.
So I'm guessing from the people you are describing that you are a big fan of big, large, bulky characters.
Yeah, I got kind of a thing for orange monsters. I'm also a big fan of Thundar the Barbarian because of Ukla the Mock. Well, so I got my hands on a bunch of these blank Thundar the Barbarians, and Ukla is kind of the big Chewbacca guy in that comic
Right.
book, that cartoon. So yeah, I like drawing the big monsters like Swamp Thing, the Thing. I draw a lot of Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is my medicine, probably. I probably draw Swamp Thing more than anybody else.
So obviously you're doing well enough to make this a career.
Yeah.
How many conventions do you go to in a year?
I used to go to a lot more. I've had some health challenges which have kept me kind of grounded a little bit more, but yeah, I've been kind of trying to ramp it up a little bit. Like this coming year, I have a few things coming up. I hopefully return to Ottawa in September again. But yeah, I've got Montreal, I think, coming in July, and I've got the East Coast Expo in Moncton, possibly TCAF in Toronto if I get in. Toronto Comic Con in March, I'll be there, and a few other surprise shows later in the year, which I'm excited to announce when I'm allowed to announce. So
we've got a couple more questions out here.
Yeah, sure.
Louis from Second Floor Comics would like to know, what comics do you read and collect?
Awesome. Well, it may be a little bit biased, but the last year or so, I've pretty much only been reading Conan books. I've been reading the Conan the Barbarian. I've been reading Savage Sword of Conan. I've been reading all their spin-off titles. I picked up the Pat Zurcher, Solomon Kane stuff.
Nice.
But that's pretty much it. Other than that, I do pick up the new Heavy Metal relaunch, the Heavy Metal magazine relaunch. I've decided to I don't have a lot of, I'm successful in that I managed to pay my rent every month, but sometimes it's a real scramble still. This freelance art thing isn't cut out for everybody. And I've been, I've been in survival mode for the last 32 years or so that I've been doing this business. But I had to narrow it down. I used to collect a whole bunch of titles, but now I'm pretty much just collecting the Conan adjacent stuff. And that's just kind of to stay tuned up with what's happening while I keep my weapons sharp, waiting for the next assignment to roll in. So
very cool. Kay Munin asks, which comic company do you most wish to work for?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've been very lucky to work for a lot of them, but I think every kid deep down wants to have that one shot at Marvel. Like I've gotten to do a couple of covers, like for DC. I recently did a Batman cover, actually, which was pretty cool for Batman #1. That was a trip to get that phone call. Now, the funny thing is, talking about Conan, I got hired to do this Batman cover the day after I got hired to draw a 10-page story in Savage Sword of Conan. So instead of feeling that crazy rush shotgun blast of getting hired to do a Batman cover, I was still on cloud 9, having been hired to work on Savage Sword. So it kind of felt like a mosquito bite instead of a shotgun blast, when I got the Batman call. But that was still a huge thrill, and that was a retailer. Thank you. That was the retailer cover with 4 stores, 3 in the States and 1 here in Canada. This book in particular is very rare, though, because the shipment of our books that came up to Canada, not only were they 2 weeks late and they got smashed to death by tariffs, they also got smashed to death by the delivery guy. So more than half of our print run was destroyed. And so this is actually a pretty rare book now, unfortunately. But I have a few of them. If anyone's interested, they can reach out to me, or you can get them directly from Dungeon Comics as well.
Now you of course are on Instagram. I've put your Instagram in the description for this video, so people can check you out. And you have honestly, this is one of the coolest names I've ever seen somebody make a play on their name. The Uncouth Ruth is really, really, really neat.
Well, when I was younger, I had dreams of being a pro wrestler, and Uncouth Ruth. I actually have the word uncouth tattooed on my back, like in the Motorhead font.
Mhm.
I got that when I was
Nice.
young and crazy in the '90s, as you do. But yeah, Uncouth Ruth is just kind of a name that stuck all these years. I used to be kind of a wild, drunken barbarian in my youth, and the Uncouth Ruth was a fitting title back then. It's just kind of stuck though.
Very cool.
Favorite
John
Conan?
Harrison is asking, who is your favorite Conan artists?
Well, number one is always going to be John Buscema.
Yeah.
Although the really interesting thing I have found this past year is I've been reading a lot of old Savage Sword of Conan books,
Mhm.
and depending on who is inking John in those days, you get some really amazing results. And so I love the Tony, I think. Um, DeZuniga or something.
Yeah.
The way he did those inks on Buscema's work was crazy.
Also, the fact is that not a lot of people, but Neil Adams did 4 stories in the first 7 issues as
Yep,
as inker. It was
amazing.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yep, the one that really blew me away was I read a couple of stories
He was
last month.
Savage, not the
Um,
regular title.
I picked up some old ones from Nefarious Comics in Ottawa,
Yeah.
and Rudy Nebres did inks on a couple of John's books, and that blew me away. I was like, "Whoa, this is incredible!" So we've been blessed to have the best artists to work on Conan. I mean, we've had. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, there's so many. There's too many to name. I love the current run. Like Robert Della Torre is a monster.
Robert Delatorre is doing amazing.
And I love Doug Braithwaite's work.
Mhm.
He's been killing it. And Ivan Gill, unbelievable. Fernando Dagnino. These guys are like the guys who are doing Conan right now on the regular. We are truly blessed. We live in a wonderful age of a wonderful new Hyborian age. I couldn't be happier. I get so excited on new comic book day. I'm always like, is there a new Conan out of any kind coming? Like, it's just it's a treat for me. I feel like a kid again. It's great.
Yeah, I get I annoyed is not the right word, but when like they get the week wrong, like for the Savage Sword, for example, I'm like, but it's supposed to come out this week.
Oh, I
Yeah, but it's being delayed. Oh, just
Yeah,
like
well, and I think in Europe too, they're delayed even further. I'm not really sure why. The publisher is in the UK, but the books are still printed here and are printed in North America. So, and there's
right.
distribution stuff. I think there was some problems when Diamond went under. There was some problems with getting certain Titan books into certain
Yeah.
Canadian shops. It's just it's kind of a wild tale. I think if you really look at it.
I think as Canadians, it's nice to get the books from America and all that stuff. But once in a while, it'd be nice if we had our own like big distribution center where everything went and
Oh yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, like I was mentioning the Batman story, like this. So it was 1,000 print run. The
Mhm.
books were printed in Quebec. So I got my 5 free copies from the publisher 2 weeks before this came out.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, they're getting printed in Quebec. That means our store in Oakville will get our books on time. They didn't. The DC shipped all of the books to the one location
In the United
in
States.
California. And
Yeah.
then we had to wait for those books to get shipped back up through a couple of different ways up to Canada. And so, on top of the tariffs and everything else and the damages, the project wasn't as lucrative as we hoped. I mean, I got paid from DC, so I didn't mind.
Mhm.
But yeah, the cost was tremendous to do a retailer exclusive, especially for Batman. For any DC or Marvel book, they're really expensive. So yeah, that was kind of a drag, and especially because the books were printed in Quebec, and if they had just dispersed it and sent them directly to us, we would have had our books out on time. It would have been great.
Now, here I have a question based on the fact that of a lot of stuff I've seen online from various other artists and stuff. A lot of people say that DC and Marvel pay slightly better than the other companies, but it takes a lot longer to get their money to get your money from Marvel and DC compared to the indies. Would you say that's a fair assessment, having done some work?
I don't know. That hasn't been my experience. I know with DC, both times I did work for DC, I got paid the next day.
Oh, that's very cool.
And it was electronic, like right in my bank account. So that's a thing that doesn't happen too often. Some companies, I won't go into naming who, but some of them will take months and months and months to pay. DC determined me to have a pretty decent cover rate, like in terms of payment, but actually Dark Horse pays me more. and Dynamite pays me more than DC did.
Mhm.
But it's we're talking nickels and dimes. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting how that all works. Some companies you're on a net 30 waiting to get paid. Like I just did four covers in a row for a company, and I'll probably get paid sometime next month. So I don't know. Never worked for Marvel, so I can't speak to that
Mhm.
experience. But I have heard that they're pretty quick on pay. I honestly don't know what their rates are though, because I'm still
Mhm.
waiting for that phone call.
I've heard Marvel's rates have gone really down a lot, and this is the part that, as I'm a comic book fan, I'm on
Mhm.
the I'm on the consumption side. I read it. I enjoy it. I talk about it, but I'm not in the production side as you are. So I'm actually, as I said to Sammy a couple weeks ago, I don't know a lot about that side of the business. So it's really cool to talk to people like you and her and Jeff
Yeah.
Isherwood and Ron Sutton and get to know more of these little stories from behind the scenes.
Oh, for
So
sure. Yeah, it's complex sometimes. Yep.
okay. So my next question would be, what technique do you prefer? Are you a pencil on paper guy, or do you prefer using the computer? Well, the tablet, I guess.
I'm more traditional. I'm probably like 95% traditional. So what I do is if I'm doing a cover, for instance, I will very often use I print out a template of like cover dimensions, and I'll work out sketches, on that at that level at that size, and then once I'm kind of happy with the layout, then I'll blow it up. I'll scan that and blow it up and print it out, and I'll work on top on my light table, or I'll just draw it big. I like to work nice and big. Like some of the like that Vampirella cover that's out tomorrow. I like the original art is massive. I wanted to paint it nice and big so that it reduces down to print size. It looks really tight. Um,
Very cool. We have a question from Mr. Robbie Josephs. Hi, Mike. I hope your health issues improve. Do
oh,
you
thank
like
you.
any Golden Age books, and are there any characters you would like to draw? Robbie's a big Golden Age guy, so.
Oh, Golden Age stuff. Yeah, God, there's some great characters in that realm. Well, I mean, I've gotten to work on a few things like I know Mad Cave has they've got the license now for the Phantom and Dick Tracy
Mhm.
and Flash Gordon. So I've gotten to do some covers for Flash Gordon and Dick Tracy. I'd love to do a Phantom one. My favorite character is like the Ben Grimm, like I said. So I've been trying to get in on Marvel somewhere. Sometimes I just give up the fight and I just move on to other things. But I like to poke them every few months or try to get some editor to get back to me. Some of them are very kind and they say, "Oh, thanks, Mike. Thanks for showing us your new work. We'll put it in the Mike Rooth file we have over here." And then I wait for them to call, and that call never comes, but maybe one day it will. But yeah, working on Ben Grimm would be a huge thrill for me. That would be a major bucket list checked off for me. But I've been lucky to work on a lot of stuff I never thought I would get to touch. Like I've always been a Turtles guy, and I got to do something like 20 Turtles covers in 2024. So
Wow.
that was pretty wild. And one of the ones I really loved was this the Turtles of Grayskull, which some of you may be aware of. There was a He-Man crossover with I'm not sure how well that'll show, but it was the Turtles and He-Man crossed over. And I haven't got great light on that. Oh, I got all kinds of reflections here, but yeah, Ben and Marvel 2-in-1. Yes, I agree. So this was a lot of fun. And what was cool about this cover was I was actually able to convince them to let me do a connecting cover set. So it's a 4-issue series, and I was able to do 4 covers that all connect and make one
Oh,
picture.
very
So,
cool. Being those kinds of covers are very neat, and they show a very good creative side on the part of the artist.
oh yeah, yeah, it was a thrill. Now for these guys, it was awesome because I really wanted the comics to feel like these old mini comics that used to come with the He-Man toys. That was kind of the vibe that I wanted to go for with those ones. So they've been very popular. They were for a retailer out in California, actually, but I got my hands on some copies. So I tour around with them when I do conventions. Um, but yeah,
Have you done many conventions in the United States?
yeah, yeah. I haven't done any recently, but I used to go to a lot of them. I used to do, oh boy, New York, Chicago, Cincinnati, Seattle. Philadelphia. I love going down. My favorite one in the States is it's in New Hampshire. It's called Granite Comic Con, and it's kind of like a Turtles focused Comic Con. And
Very
man,
cool.
the fandom down there is the whole Turtles fandom. For one thing, is I know I don't know if Sammy mentioned that when she was on, but the
Mhm.
whole Turtles fandom is gigantic. And I have, you have a comic that's lasted over 40 years now, and I've got customers as old as 75 and as young as 10 that
Mhm.
love the Turtles with the same kind of fury that they did when they first started, when they first were introduced. So it's a pretty amazing fandom, and New Hampshire really celebrates that. The Granite Con really celebrates the Turtles fans, the Turtle
Mhm.
maniacs. It's wonderful.
And we have another question here from Jeff. What characters did you draw for Project Superpowers?
Oh, cool. So I love that series. That was a lot of fun. I kind of got to draw the main character mainly, because that story that I drew was it's a Ron Mars story. I just drew the covers, like the main covers on those ones. But I love drawing the Black Terror. Like, I thought he was just awesome. I got to draw him on the first cover, and then kind of like the crew of heroes in that story are kind of like underlings of him, or in the
Mhm.
same vein as the Black Terror. But I got to draw a few. Can't think of the names off of everyone, but the story was about different superheroes of that age being murdered by somebody,
Right.
and by a superpowered villain. I got to draw a lot of characters being murdered without showing who the murderer was until the final issue, the final reveal, which was pretty cool. So that was yeah, awesome characters, so much fun. Dynamite's really got their hands on some great properties between Red Sonja and Vampirella, and
Yeah.
the John Carter of Mars stuff, and awesome.
I got a kick out of Red Sonja and Vampirella meet Betty and Veronica. I
Oh
really
yeah,
got a kick out of that
they've
series.
done some great crossovers. I have a blank copy somewhere around here of Red Sonja and Mars Attacks. Uh,
Oh, another good one.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I've been a Red Sonja fan since forever. I've had a crush on her since 1982. So when I first started seeing these scandalizing drawings of her in Savage Sword short stories, or in the Red Sonja regular series that guys like Jeff Escherwood worked on,
Yes.
pretty awesome stuff. So I recently got to do a bunch of Red Sonja covers. So within a few months, you'll start to see announcements for those showing up in the previews. So she's
Oh, cool.
one of my favorites. I've done a few covers for her. I think she might have been my first Red Sonja cover was the Red Sonja Conan crossover book in 2015. I believe Jim Zub and Gail Simone were the writers on that one.
I have that. I have that series. I may not have your cover. I
Yeah,
have that. But
my cover was for a little shop in Buffalo called 1811 Comics. We were just an amazing shop. It's like a comic shop built on top of like a chocolate shop, an ice cream shop. Like, it's just and it's in an old ancient
well,
barn. And
we know where to send the wives then when we're
oh yeah,
going,
no, it's a
going
cool.
to the store.
Howard Cadmus, who owns that shop, just an excellent guy, and yeah, that was a real thrill because I got to draw Conan and Red Sonja on a cover. So that was awesome.
That sounds really cool. So do you think that this Red Sonja work and the fact that you did the Vampirella special that's coming out tomorrow, do you think that will get you more work on Vampirella?
I hope so. I mean, I love the characters. I would love to draw. I think the last couple of months I've been really really trying to get a Thundar gig. Like, I really wanted to do Thundar the Barbarian. That's my favorite cartoon as a kid, and
Mhm.
I just loved it. I really wanted to do a
Who
cover.
has the rights to the Thunder at the moment?
So Dynamite has that right now.
Okay, that's
So
cool.
Jason Aaron's doing the story, and the artwork is great. The fella's name is the last name is, I got it here somewhere. Where is it now? The last name is Baal, Baal. The artwork's pretty solid. It feels like a grittier edge of the old cartoon. So I was poking them. I feel like I was throwing grappling hooks into every window of the Dynamite Entertainment complex, trying to catch anyone's attention to try to get on the Thundar. And basically, an editor reached out to me and said, "Well, I can't give you a Thundar cover right now, but I do need some Red Sonja stuff." So I was off to the races at that point because I love that character.
Yes. No. So, well, I would think that they have a lot more Red Sonja books than they do Thundar, because as cool as Thundar is,
Oh
I
yeah,
remember the cartoon. I've never read the comics. That's why
I never had them
asked you
before.
before.
These are the first time it's been done in comics. So
Oh, well, that
it was
explains
a
it.
cartoon. It aired in Canada in 1981 and 1982. I watched
Yeah,
it religiously, and then that was it. It was never seen in Canada again. I
yeah, I
recently,
remember. I see. I'm that age too. I remember a lot of these shows. Like, you got Thundar, you had Rocket Robin Hood, and
oh
you
yeah.
had, that was Canadian, Hercules.
Well, Thunder was
Yeah,
cool because it predates He-Man, so like it actually came out
that's
before
true.
He-Man, and then it kind of got buried by the whole Masters of the
That's
Universe thing,
true.
which is
He
fine.
Man was 1982, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved He-Man as well. Like I love all that kind of sword and sorcery stuff. But Thunder was special because I was a Star Wars kid, so having a character that was like like a blonde-headed kind of Conan the Barbarian, but he's got a sun sword, which is basically a lightsaber, and he's
Yeah.
got a companion who's Ookla the Mock, who's basically Chewbacca.
Yep.
It was pretty rad. And it took place on our planet, but in the future, and the distant future of 1994.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
you
know.
know,
These
so
those are so. I was saying this not long ago, on a stream that we do reviews on, and we did Superman 300, which came out in 1976,
right.
and the way they had pictured 2001 was so like,
Oh
it was
yeah.
like the Jetsons, right? Like, and it was like on top. It's like, this is so not right.
Well, it's like you probably heard of the Last Ronin series from the Turtles. I mean,
Yes.
that was originally conceived of back in like 1987, and when they conceived of the story, they had flying cars and stuff, and the story was supposed to take place in 2017, but because we got to 2017 and we still didn't have flying cars, they decided to like push the story into the future. So now it's like takes place in 2047.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, it's kind of like what they keep doing with Ben Grimm, for example. They keep pushing which war he was a veteran in. Now,
Oh yeah,
currently, it's the
yeah,
Gulf War. It
yeah.
used to be World War II, then it was Vietnam, and then it was
Oh yeah.
Korea at one point. Like, it was all over the place.
Yeah, these characters are timeless, right? Like I always
Yeah,
laugh when I think about I can't remember who the Thing is fighting against in one of those old Marvel 2-in-1s, but in it he's kind of got an arm twister on the guy he's fighting, and he's like, I learned this one from the world champ Dory Funk Jr.
oh my God,
Which is that was like early 70s, right? So
yeah.
that was pretty rad.
I know. Yeah, that's actually one of the things I love about reading old comics. And you see what was the popular at the time.
Oh
People
yeah,
make people make cracks. Like, I only knew who Spiro Agnew was because he was in Mad. He kept getting named in Mad magazine,
right.
and some of these other things. Like, it would never have occurred because we live in Canada, and I was a kid anyways. But so I didn't pay doctor bills, but we had public social insurance, where so the concept of doctor bills absolutely did not cross my mind ever. And it was like this
Yeah.
whole thing in the States where they're like, yeah, we're charging $4 for an aspirin and all this other stuff that they
Oh
would do.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a cool little time capsule, right? Comics are a time
Mhm.
capsule, so I just kind of grin and bear it when they update a
Yeah,
character's history to reflect the current time. It's got to make sense, right? It's like
exactly.
it's got to make sense of the current market, right? Whoever that market is. So
They did that with Superboy. They always said Superboy was 12 years behind whatever year Superman was in.
right,
Just
yeah.
like after a while, because once you got to the 60s, that 1930s look didn't feel very good anymore.
No, exactly, right? Exactly.
you
It's
know,
like they I mean, I do appreciate with the most recent FF movie that they tried to do that retro, like that retro kind of story of like the space race. You know what I mean? They tried to go back to that idea of who's going to
Mhm.
be first in space and who's going to be the
Right.
first to accomplish this or that. Like that didn't fly 15 years ago or 10 years ago, right? But you got to go back to the core story. I think that's always going to work better than a modern version or a modern adaptation of a thing.
So
So,
what have you got coming out that you can really talk about? Sammy couldn't talk about some of the stuff she was doing, but I'm just curious. Well, what can you talk about?
well, like it's funny. The last couple months has been a little bit quiet, professionally speaking. It just kind of went through a 3 or 4 month period where there was nothing new coming out. that I was a part of. But I did a cover for Magic the Gathering at Dark Horse. They have a Untold Stories of Jace, which is one of the Planeswalker. I'm not super familiar with the Magic the Gathering material, but that cover is coming out pretty soon. I think I have the original art right here that I can show. Let me just see if I can pull this down without creating an avalanche in my studio, because I live in a really tight space. But here we are. I did these full-size pieces of. I've been painting really large lately, and I've been specifically painting. So that's the cover that's coming out for Dark Horse.
Very cool.
It's coming out I think it might be out in March. It might be out later this month. I'm not 100% sure. So that one's coming. I got Vampirella out tomorrow. And then, in the coming months, there'll be some Red Sonja stuff. And I've been quietly kind of working away on my own thing as well. And I don't know when that'll see the light of day, but I'm trying to develop a thing right now just to kind of, give me something to focus on and keep my creative juices flowing while I wait for, professional jobs to come in. So I got some Viking stuff coming up and some other stuff that I've been playing with.
Do you find you have to chase more, or do people call you more?
I think I'm getting called for work more often than I used to. I used to only exclusively do stuff for retailers. So if there was a retailer that wanted to do a cover, I've been approved by every publisher, so it was not an issue. If they knew that they submitted my name to do a cover for their store, it would probably get approved. That's not a brag. That's just I've been doing this a long time, and I think it's maybe my reputation has paved a little bit of a way for me. I'm not sure, but I'm always delighted when I get a call from a publisher to do a job. And it's always a thrill. It always feels like the coolest thing ever. It's always a nice surprise. I do reach out to people. I just try to stay in people's radar. This business is kind of funny, by the time you think you have fallen out of someone's radar, you realize you're not even on the radar map anymore, because things happen very quickly. And, it might be a case where you're working with an art director specifically, with a company, and then that art director gets moved to a different office, and now you don't have that contact at that publisher anymore. So you kind of I got to move around and follow people up, and it's just good to stay in touch with people. I did a Purgatory cover last year, and I reached out to the same editor and said, "Hey, I'd love to do some work with you," and just happened to be lucky enough to go, "Oh, I need a Vampirella cover." Like, it just was a lucky timing on my phone call. But sometimes it's just not like that. Sometimes you just hammer on doors and windows until someone either tells you to go away or they give you a job.
My last question for you is, if you couldn't be a comic book artist, what would you be doing?
Oh, man.
It sort of gives away a little bit of a person's personality.
Well, I've done all kinds of hard labor jobs up to this point. Comics always became was always an escape that most of the time I spend in disbelief that I'm able to do this and actually pay my bills with it. I don't make a lot of money. I'm not gonna tell a fantasy about how I have this, we have a 15-year-old car, and we barely, my wife's also a freelance artist, so we scrape it together, but it's been an amazing journey to do this. If I wasn't a comic book artist, honestly, I've been an illustrator for so long, so I've worked on stuff that was completely unrelated to comics. If there was art needed for any particular job, I would do it. If it was an article needs an illustration, or someone in their restaurant needs an illustration on their menu board, tattoo designs. I've done just about everything there is. I've also been the superintendent of a building. I've also dug trenches for a cable company. I've worked in retail. I've worked in warehouses. I wanted to be a pro wrestler, but it didn't turn out that way for me. So I think I'd probably be a pretty good manager. Probably couldn't do the in-ring stuff.
Honestly, the best part of wrestling is the yelling into the mic thing. Oh, yeah. I'm going to kick your butt. We're going to win.
I always liked how comics and wrestling kind of walked hand in hand. At least they did for me. You got good guys, you got bad guys,
Yeah.
you've got character arcs, you have you have alliances, you have crumbling alliances, you have betrayal, you have a lot of the things that happen in comics, and only it's
Yeah, well, it explains why a lot of these conventions also bring in WWE wrestlers, especially in Montreal. They get a lot of
Oh
wrestlers.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't always love that, but at the same time, I understand it.
Mhm.
You know, it's. I think there's a lot of appeal. Like I loved all the masked wrestlers and the Japanese wrestlers when I was, coming up. I don't watch wrestling anymore. I don't, but
Mhm.
it's one of those things. It's kind of an old diehard thing in me. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Thank you for joining us tonight. If you enjoyed Mike's stuff tonight, he is also going to be on with Gary B. Gary B. the Casual Guy at 9 o'clock p.m. tonight
Yep.
Eastern. So after this show, Mike will be with Gary and probably Digger Jim and some of the other guys that hang out there with him. I myself am actually going to be on Nate's show tonight at 8 o'clock when this wraps up. So
Awesome.
Nate, of course, most of you already go there. I know after this show, so you're going to be stuck with this face again. Just a little bit of business from the channel. I now have the addresses for all 6 of the winners, so I will be working on getting the prizes out very soon. Thank you for everybody who joined. Thank you, of course, for subscribing. Thank you for those that entered. And, of course, just thank you for being here. I really appreciate everybody who comes by and spends time with me here, and my guests, of course.
Oh, my
Mike,
pleasure, man.
I want to thank you very much. I have really enjoyed your Conan work. I also bought one of these posters there.
Right on.
Was it Rod? It's Roddy.
Yeah, Roddy
Williams.
Williams.
Right? Roddy Williams, Sinclair 3 coming out. This is the Mike Rooth cover.
That's right.
And I bought one on Kickstarter.
Right on.
So
Roddy's good people. I like Roddy. He's a good dude. He's another Conan guy too.
Yes, I know. I had the pleasure of talking with him a couple times now. Awesome. Thank you, everybody who's come tonight. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. I'm going to have to cut it short now because I got to get ready for my next show. So thank you, everybody, for coming. My name's Matt. I love comics, and I hope you do too. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Matt.